Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in today's video I'm going to tell you the story of how I actually got to fly my first aircraft. And I'll have to disappoint you, this is not about the 737, this is not about the Cessna 150, but this is actually about flying gliders. Well, my very first time flying in a cockpit was actually at my 6th or 7th birthday party, where a friend of my parents who owns a Cessna 150 actually took myself and a couple of friends of mine for some rides around our local airfield. And that was the very first time I flew in the cockpit. Even though I didn't fly myself at that point, of course. But then later on, in the summer holidays in schools when I was 15 years old, there was a program from the city where I was living that was designed to keep the students busy in their summer holidays and to get their parents a little bit time off their kids. And in that program they actually offered flying as a student pilot in the glider club for 2 days, where basically they said that you can do 2 flights there if you're coming for the full 2 days, both of something between 15 and 30 minutes. So I found that very cool, because at that time I didn't even know that I could start flying gliders at such a young age. I always thought you can't start flying before you're 18 years old, but I was proven to be wrong, and you can actually start flying gliders at the age of 14 in Germany and most European countries, and you can get the license at the age of 16. So that is something really cool that I can recommend any of you who's in this age and who's fascinated of flying to do. Flying gliders is great fun. You gain a lot of experience that's going to be very helpful if you decide to pursue a commercial pilot's career at a later point. But let's get back to flying, actually. So, at these 2 days I basically got to do the first flight in the pilot seat, and I loved it from the very beginning on. Once we had completed our winch launch and were flying around, the instructor finally handed me controls. For the first time, you have control. That was a great feeling. At that time I did have quite a bit of Microsoft Flight Simulator experience already, so it really felt great to have an aircraft in my hand for the first time. And the instructor noted as well that I was doing pretty well, so he actually offered me to do most of the approach until just about when we started crossing the threshold of the field that we were landing on. And for the second time, on my second flight, same thing, the instructor did the winch launch, but as soon as we have disconnected the cable, I took over the aircraft, and once again I could fly pretty much everything all the way until the beginning of the flare, when the instructor took over from me. Now, after this I was totally thrilled, and the club had a program running for 2 weeks' time right after these 2 initial days where you could fly every day and do several flights every day and basically really advance in your glider pilot training. So that's what I did, and I flew pretty much every day. It must have been a lot of flights I did in that time. And actually, as said, this was about the mid of the summer holidays. Now afterwards you maybe have 2 or 3 months until the gliding season is over, and when you start packing the gliders and bringing them to the homes of the clubs where you start doing all the winter works and everything. So I managed to do my first solo flight within that time, and I managed to do it rather early actually, which was due to my previous Flight Simulator experience. But guys, I have a separate video coming up about that and about how Flight Simulator helped myself becoming a pilot. But so I'll leave most of that for the extra video. But what I really want to emphasize on here is that start as early as possible as you can, and flying gliders is a lot of fun. So, talking about flying gliders, the one you see on screen right now is the Discus2c by the developer GotFriends, and that's actually the first payware glider that has just been released for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, there has been a freeware version of the Discus on flightsim.to previously, and it's still available, which I and I'm going to link to it in the video description below if you would just want to try it out. And that freeware used to be great fun, and was it 2 days ago? I actually don't remember. A few days ago, they have released the first payware version, which is actually greatly enhanced in the number of features, and it also features a motor glider version of the Discus2c. Now, I haven't tried that one out yet. I've only tried the one without engines. But I am very positive that seeing the quality of the standard Discus2c, it is going to be a great addition to your simulator. Especially with the VFR scenery you have in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I loaded this thing up after I got it for the first time at the airfield where I actually did my gliding, and man, it felt like all of a sudden I've been teleported 12 years back. Right back into the seat of that ASK-21 that I did my first flights on. Especially in virtual reality, by the way. It is an amazing experience that I can only recommend any one of you. So, going back to the story then. After the first winter, where I had some pilot theory in my club, we had the second season in which I basically flew, I think it was 150 flights or something, so quite a lot, probably even 200 flights. Quite a lot, really. And I basically finished almost everything I needed for the glider pilot license, but then the winter came, and over that winter I went to the official theory lessons on the weekends and did the theory exam for the glider pilot license and my radio communication certificate. That's something that non-German pilots will probably not know about, but here in Germany we actually need to do a radio communication certificate to be allowed to operate that radio, which in almost any other EASA country is just included in the pilot license itself. So, you see, my background, my first 3.5 years in aviation were really all about gliding. And that is why I was really happy to see the GotFriends Discus2c in my simulator. Now there is also some great other gliders available, some of which I'm going to cover in some future videos. But this is the first payware one, so this is also the best one by far at the moment. Let's actually head into it. So this is our glider. I'll close the canopy here, even though it's going to get really hot really quick. So let's just open that window to get at least a little bit of cool air in. I can feel it becoming hot already. That's just how used I got to it. So I'm going to take you out for a small ride here in the Discus, but before I do so, let's quickly explain a few things. Now, the instrument you have up here is what we call a FLARM. That's basically a TCAS, just that it can only interact with other FLARM-equipped aircraft. Now here in Germany pretty much every glider has a FLARM, so you will see the light that is indicating where the other aircraft is, and then this one is indicating you if it's higher, same altitude, or lower than you are. The other important instruments in this one actually, of course, the speed, which is in kilometers per hour, by the way. In Europe, most gliders are being flown on kilometers an hour, not on knots, as in, let's call it, normal powered aircraft. The altimeter down here is in meters as well. We do fly gliders in meters still. Then we have our vertical speed indicator, which is in meters per second. Basically, 1 meter per second equals 200 feet a minute, so 5 meters per second equals 1,000 feet a minute. Of course, we have our radio, our compass, and over here we have our electronic variometer, which you are going to hear quite a lot. It is making a beeping sound, and if it's beeping really fast, then that means that you are currently climbing, or rather that the air around you is currently climbing. And if it goes into a long sound, then that means the air is descending and you want to get out of that really quickly. Now, I'm not going to go into too much glider flying theory over here. That's just to tell you what to expect when we are actually doing this flight. Now, we are at Zell am See over here, one of the first sceneries I ever got for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and one of the first that actually was released from OpX for this simulator, right when it was released. We're going to do winch launch over here, and that is fully integrated in the Discus glider. So once I click on connect, we can then choose how long the cable is supposed to be and at what speed we want to be winched up into the sky. And finally, we also have a transponder over here. And even the circuit breakers are fully simulated. And you will notice there is a GoPro circuit breaker over here. That's because I actually have a GoPro mounted in the back of the flight deck, and clicking on that is going to bring us into the GoPro perspective. Now, that's something I'm surely going to record a video with in the future, but we'll get to that eventually when the time has come. So, you can see in the windsocks over there that we got quite a bit of wind coming from the north. That means that over here we are expecting some ridge lift when the wind is being pushed up the mountain. So that's what we actually want to head out and have a look at. So all of the set, let's get a winch launch over here. So, connect. We take 1,500 meters cable, launch at 130 kilometers an hour, which is a good speed for the Discus. Optimum would be around 120, but 130 is going to work. So, we'll click on launch. And here we go. Initially you really want to climb very slowly in case the cable ruptures. Once you've got some altitude, you are going to pull that nose up. And try to keep the best angle without actually pulling up too strong, because then the cable may auto-release. So that's the difficulties of doing a winch launch. And eventually, as we get up, we can see our profile over here. Of course, that's just an aid that GotFriends put into the Discus. You wouldn't have that one in real life. Basically, the nose is coming down until eventually we reach the optimum point. Then we're going to disconnect the cable. Well, right now it has auto-release. So click that yellow one over here, just in case the cable ruptured. Now by clicking on here, we actually get our flight computer. Right, so gear up, that's over here. Well, let's start heading towards the ridge. We've gained quite a bit of altitude here. 700 meters is very good altitude to start from. The glider itself descends at approximately half a meter per second without any thermals or without any descending air around. And the Discus actually comes with some weather presets as well, because by default the Microsoft Flight Simulator is not that good with creating thermals. So we actually seem to have gotten one here. Let's start circling in it to stay in that air, gain a little bit of altitude. It used to be better over here. When we started the circle, the lift broke down a little bit. So let's just try to get back into this lift. But no, we seem to have lost it. Anyway, we've got the wind coming from the south, so let's just go on towards the ridge over here. And over there we are surely going to get some more lift. Now you may be surprised how close we're actually going to go towards the mountain, but the closer you get, the stronger the thermals get, and we want to take them all, do we? And if you just search on YouTube for some real-life glider flights, you'll be surprised how close to the mountains many of them actually go. You've got to be careful though. If you get to the wrong side of the ridge, all that air will be coming down again, And it might be very hard to actually even get out of it before you are finally hitting the ground. Right, we've got more than enough altitude to glide over there to the other ridge, so let's go ahead and do that. Basically, you're trying to fly that triangle on the speed indicator over there for the time when you are trying to get your optimal lift. And then when you want to go straight and try to cover some distance, you'll go a bit faster. Usually something around 170, 180 kilometers an hour is pretty good to get you over to another place. Especially when you're flying through descending air, then just go faster. Of course that means you'll descend quicker as well, but the faster you're out of the descending air, the better your the better it will be, because of course you can always trade speed for altitude and the other way around. So right now we're doing 170 kilometers an hour at 1,470 meters of altitude, but when I'm pulling that speed off back to the optimal glide speed, then we can easily make some 80 meters altitude out of it. Now we've already found the next ridge lift over here, so go back to the yellow triangle, take the lift along. Let's actually see if we can make it all the way to the top of the mountain over there. Theoretically it should surely be possible, because we have the wind coming over here, and that wind simply has to be pushed up the mountain. There's no other way for the wind to go. We basically have this small ring around our varimeter here, the McCready wing, where we just set the normal or the average thermals that we expect. So let's say I want 2 meters per second. So depending on what the needle shows to, that is the optimal speed I should fly in these conditions for this glider. So if it's 0, we should fly 120, -1, 140, and so on. One thing for you to consider if you do consider now to fly some gliders, that is, you better be able to cope with roller coasters, because that is exactly what all those thermals feel like. Basically, if you're flying as a passenger, then what you notice as turbulence is the airliner going through thermals at high speed. And of course, you want to avoid that in the airlines, but you are searching for it in the gliders. So let's see if we can find something over here. Maybe going into this, maybe going into here. Yeah, that looks alright. That looks very good indeed. We're flying southbound now. The wind should come straight from behind. Of course, make sure you're not losing too much of your airspeed. Alright, let's make our 180 turn here. Because we might get into the descending air of the other side. Actually no, this is climbing here as well. Okay. And we'll stay in here, of course. No, now we're getting out of it. Now we're going into the descending air. So let's run for the other ridge again. Oh, why did the speed brakes come out? I don't want the speed brakes. That sometimes is my thrust lever. Basically, whenever I restart my computer, I just need to disconnect and reconnect it. Now the speed brakes are in. Do note that the speed brakes in a glider usually are very, very effective. Okay, so we could get up to the top of the mountain if we wanted to, but I really don't want to do this for an hour now, just to talk you through a little bit of flying in the Alps. So we'll just take it as that for now, and let's actually return to our departure field. Of course, approaching with the glider is something a little bit different from approaching with a powered airplane, but you're still doing your normal traffic pattern. You just have to ensure that your energy is managed properly. So, just taking along the thermal while it lasts over here. The air is still climbing, so I'm flying rather slow right now. (1,650 meters altitude right now. That is pretty much the highest that I've gotten in a glider in real life, so that is round about 5,000 feet or so. Somewhere between 5 and 6,000, I think, if I'm calculating this right in my head right now. Right, so right now the air is neither climbing nor descending. Now it's descending again, so let's push up for a little bit of speed to get through that a little bit faster. And of course it's climbing again, so let's take that along. You see, that way of flying is probably for those of you who like G-forces and who like roller coasters. But I can recommend any one of you to try flying gliders. At least go to the local club and book a local flight. Most of them offer some small trips, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, for anywhere around 20 euros. So I can really recommend all of you to try that out. So let's try to make some distance now. We want to get back to the airfield, which is just beyond that ridge over there. You have to be careful when you're flying that close to a mountain, because at this speed, because when you're flying next to a mountain, then you are constantly going to encounter turbulence whenever the shape of the terrain changes. And the shape of the terrain basically changes constantly. So I'm just about flying it at the beginning of the yellow arc right now, because I really don't want to go into it, just in case we hit some really strong up or down draft, which could then overload the aircraft. So, as said, we're at Zell am See, so let's actually go out to that See, to that lake in English, for a short moment here. We still have the altitude to lose, so remember the airfield was at 750 meters, and we actually want to beam the landing threshold at an altitude of 200 meters above the field elevation. So that means we want to be there at 950 meters. So we still got 200 meters to lose, a little bit of time to play with. So let's just have a look around the area over here, while we still can. Of course, basic aerodynamics apply to gliders just like they do to any other airplane. So the faster we fly, the quicker it's descending when we're above the optimum glide speed here. Let's actually try the GoPro perspective here. That's nice, isn't it? So just take a look here how slowly it's actually losing altitude. We've basically covered that distance across the lake now with about 100 meters of altitude. If we close that window... Note the sound changing. I'm loving it. We have this very small part of the window here. It's basically what you use when you don't want that big noise. Alright, so turn around. Let's actually just start making our way back towards the airport here. Optimum right now is 150, 140. So something around that. Let's actually fly these speeds. Because right now we still have 100 meters to lose to get to the airfield. So that's going to be well possible to get there in time. But, you know, you don't really want to risk it, just in case the air starts descending around you, you get into some downdrafts. Then you want to have that little bit of reserve, since you can't just fire up your engine and make your way back to the airfield. So getting into some thermals, but we actually don't really want to climb here right now. Because we want to actually come in for a landing. I'll just keep going straight. So normally you wouldn't just fly right over the airfield at this altitude, because there could always be somebody launching on the winch or somebody going around on the traffic pattern of the powered aircraft. But, you know, after all, we're still a simulator. Still got to lose a little bit of speed over here, so I'll just treat the speed for altitude and make a right-hand turn back into the downwind, then we should basically have it covered. 40 meters to lose to get into the optimal approach position, so we'll just make that turn over here, then get ourselves into the downwind. We'll fly the whole approach at around 120. Still have a little bit of water in our wings, by the way, so let's just open these tanks, get rid of that water. So, gear down. Now, of course, the difficult task is to actually get yourself into a proper traffic pattern to get the airplane down properly. If you fly out too far, then, well, good luck getting back. And if you're too close to the airport, you probably won't have a second try. And with all of that, of course, you have to keep in mind that you are basically flying with tailwind on the downwind. So it might be very easy to underestimate the distance you need to actually get back. But we're on a good way over here. Taking out the speed brakes in order to get myself onto a steady descent path here at a steady speed. We're going to land on the grass field over here. You can slightly see it marked in front there, just about to the left of us. Speed brakes are fully out right now. Just look at how big they actually are. Quite a bit of drag we're getting there. So a little bit less speed brake in order to get over the fence. Full speed brake again. Flare it and decrab. Down we are. Alright, that's it. We've made it. Gonna shut the aircraft down now. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much. So, that's it. That is basically how I started flying. Now, at the airfield where I did my glider flying, there were no mountains in the region, so we had to soar via thrust under clouds mostly, or via blue thermals, but that's a whole lot of theory that I don't even want to start on right now. But anyway, I hope you liked this one. Let me know if you want me to do some more contents featuring some more gliders and some more of the stories how I did my VFR flying and how I advanced through my aviation career. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you really liked the video and want to help out the channel, consider a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link that you can find in the video description below. For now, thank you very much for listening, hope you found this interesting, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.